Hello everyone, I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Jayson.
And we are father
and son.
And today Jayson and I are embarking on a journey through Boom Power Rangers comics. We're going to try to tackle everything in production order.
Boom!
Isn't that exciting, Jayson?
Yeah.
Jayson, it's been a little while since we did regular Power Rangers content together. Years ago, we did commentaries on episodes, even before DJ and I were doing Morphin Mania.
And before Eric and you were doing Morphin Mania.
Yep, that's right. And then here and there on this show, on Father and Son, this is basically a Father and Son / vault, comic vault. Jayson and I have done a few things here and there on Power Rangers, some top 10 lists and things. And we've talked about doing this forever.
Yeah.
I've been wanting to get back to it for a long time. I've never reviewed Shattered Grid. I mean, I've talked about, like, disparate issues of that as they were coming out back when I used to talk about new comics, but I've never really talked about the whole thing altogether. And I want to say we have like one video on all the books up to when that starts. Eric and I did a big, long conversation talking about the first couple trades of of Go-Go, and of the first, I guess, 24 issues of this series. And I guess I've reviewed like Power Rangers Pink and some of the minis and one-shots and things too. But finally, we're going to go ahead and do all of it. So I am revisiting material here that I've talked about before, and we'll try not to repeat myself too terribly much. I thought instead of doing... of going back and basically redoing the video that Eric and I did, we would kind of break these down into smaller bite-sized morsels and look at them maybe a little bit closer. And so it'll take a few weeks before we get up to Shattered Grid. We kicked around just doing Shattered Grid and then moving on from there, but we both would have had to revisit that earlier material, and we'd probably find ourselves just talking a lot about that.
Yeah. Should we just get right into it? Or should we, like, talk about something else?
What do you talk about something else?
I don't know if, like, there was anything before we just jumped straight into it.
Well, let's do a little bit of preamble, I guess, and just start with, this series begins 6 years ago in 2016, and it's wild that it's been that long now. So, like, half your life ago, your lifetime ago, these comics start, and just to give folks a little bit of historical context, these come out just before the 2017 Power Rangers movie, of course. And it's kind of unfortunate that this couldn't have started a bit before that and informed that movie a little bit. I think if Shattered Grid had been huge and then that movie got produced, it would have been a very different movie and likely would have been more appealing to more people. Welcome, folks, if you're watching live right now, doing this live like we do everything else. Feel free to weigh in on this series and ask questions and give us topics and things about this as we move along.
Speaking of the 2017 movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's the one Power Ranger shirt.
Power Ranger shirt I have.
That you own, yeah.
And I just got it. Like, for a while I didn't have any Power Ranger shirts.
So this series was relatively successful for Boom. It was kind of one of the big things, maybe the big thing that put them on the map. Not a company that a lot of people had heard about before that. You might have expected IDW to get this license because of a lot of the TV and movie tie-in stuff that they were doing right then. Of course, IDW and Boom have a really good working relationship. They've done a lot of crossovers together, and Boom is a lot like them in the way they handle their licenses. I guess the other big thing right then that they were doing a lot of was Doctor Who, and IDW had previously had that license, and that's kind of a history with different properties between these two companies, where IDW will do a thing for a while, and then eventually they'll lose the rights and it will go to Boom, and that's happened also with Buffy. And Boom has taken some of their licenses and sometimes been more successful with them and sometimes been less successful. I'd say with Buffy, arguably maybe not as successful, and with Well, I guess I say IDW. I guess Dark Horse had Buffy. Did IDW have that license for a minute?
Yeah.
Now that I'm thinking about it, I can't recall. I thought they did, but maybe not. Anyway, I'm a little rusty on new comics because I haven't been reviewing or buying for quite a while. And part of the reason, by the way, I wanted to do this series was to try to get back into Power Rangers comic collecting, because it's been a couple years since I did that actively. And no, Dark Horse definitely had it. Anyway, so let's go ahead and start at that place, because it's difficult to talk about this without thinking about how it's influenced the fandom ever since then, and how comics have been handled since then as well. When Boom got the Buffy license, I found myself going, man, I wish that Power Rangers was handled the way this was, where they just reimagined it and started over. And then I read a few issues, or I guess the first couple trades of the Buffy comics, and I actually don't like them as well as this, even though I prefer the method that they took with that, where it was a straight-up reboot, because it was still informed too much by what you were supposed to know as a Buffy fan. It wasn't tailored at all toward anybody that had never seen that material before, and I don't think so. And it just introduced a lot of elements and characters way too early, and you found yourself getting kind of overwhelmed, where it was like they were trying to catch up to a much later Buffy status quo way too quickly, and it just didn't. It just felt off, and it was hard to get into. And there's things I liked about that series, but ultimately I dropped off of it, like I think a lot of people did. And but I did like I said, that it started from scratch, and that ostensibly you should be able to pick it up and go, oh, Buffy, I've heard of that, or I watched that a lot of years ago. Let's see what a modern reimagining of that would be. And that's what I wanted for Power Rangers, and that's not exactly what we got. And I've talked about this a lot with this series, but my big beef with this has always been it's a reimagining of sorts, but or I should say an update of sorts, right? Where it's present day, we've got cell phones, it's current technology, it's not in the 90s, it's not a 90s period piece, etc., etc. But it doesn't start over. It doesn't go back from the beginning and reimagine anything. It has to be like between the raindrops, but the really big important event stuff happens more here than in the show, and you have to constantly kind of adjust, where you couldn't really put everything in chronological order, where you would read the comics in between Power Ranger episodes.
No.
It just doesn't work at all.
No. Because what would you even, because there's not like a real timeline, so like what would you even base it off of?
Yeah, the only timeline there is really is just the major episodes of the show. It's like, these things happen between Green with Evil and maybe Doomsday. I couldn't even tell you where Doomsday falls exactly here. And then, at some point we jump ahead and White Light happens, and we have a big time jump in the comics. And so you can, I guess, watch everything in between, the last place we are in the comics with, like, season 1, and then, watch the rest of season 1 in the show, and then watch some of 2, and then get back into the comics. I guess it would be really awkward. And again, sometimes you'd be in the 90s, and sometimes you'd be in, the mid-20 teens.
Yeah. Do you think that this show works? Do you think this show works as, like, still in that, like, Mighty Morphin era, but being...
You mean, do I think the comics work?
Yeah, do you think the comics work being set in the late 2010s, but but kind of having that same feel of the 90s?
Yeah. Oh, you mean just if we started over, is it okay that we updated?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's maybe in some ways... You know what? I don't even think that. I was gonna say maybe it's a harder pill to swallow even than Ninja Turtles, which is also an update, but a reimagining with IDW. And you could read the first issue of that, having never looked at anything Ninja Turtles, and potentially get swept up in it and get really into that material. And that's what I love about that. I was going to say earlier that that's the one thing like this that I think has been handled most right. Mm-hmm. I've fallen off of that, but the first 100 issues and all the side books and stuff, I think that's wonderfully handled, where you could become a huge Ninja Turtles fan just looking at that material, and it feels like a definitive Ninja Turtles. This requires supplementary reading or supplementary watching.
Yeah.
And so, it's a little bit awkward, but to your question, I think you can update it. Like, it is an inherently 90s kind of thing, but I think all the archetypes of the characters can still kind of be updated and kind of made to work, and I don't think that you have to go as dramatically, serious or, trying to darken it up as hard even as the 2017 movie did in order to modernize it. So, I think you can set Mighty Morphin in modern day.
Okay, because I didn't...
Is that a hang-up you have?
I didn't really have an answer for that. Like, I didn't really have a problem with it. I just thought of that, and I didn't really know myself, like, because it's just such a 90s thing.
Yeah.
Just like everyone who grew up in the 90s knew the Power Rangers was a thing.
Well, and what's funny is I think this does make a good case for it, even at the same time as everything that's canonical with it from the show is 90s. So, like, it's really kind of strange to, like I said, try to go back and forth. But, you look at Kimberly, we don't try to make her an airhead from the beginning. You automatically have a less 90s nerdy stereotype with Billy, even though he still has that a little bit, but he's not wearing the, like, overalls and the plaid and everything.
Yeah. But should we get into my notes?
Oh, you've got notes.
I do have notes.
Sure. Well, why don't you give us a brief synopsis of what happens in these first 9 issues? We're looking at 0 to 8, and I should say it's sort of 2 story arcs, but the second arc ends very much on a cliffhanger, so we don't really have like a whole beginning, middle, and end to talk about here. This is going to be very, very serialized, but that's appropriate because Power Rangers was always kind of that way.
Kind of, yeah.
It was more serialized than really anything else I was watching at the time, besides maybe like X-Men. I think that was one of the things that people... that kids really appreciated about that show, is that as superficial as the storytelling and the characterization was, like, people, the characters in the show remembered what happened week to week. And it was a little bit less Saturday morning cartoon because of that. But anyway, always kind of a serialized thing, and then becomes much more that way as it goes along. And some of that's because the Sentais are certainly that way.
Do people call, like, some live-action shows Saturday morning cartoons, even though they're not cartoons, they're live-action?
Only in that they feel like cartoons. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? But you had stuff like Power Rangers. I mean, it was few and far between, but that aired, in a lineup or around a lineup with cartoons, because there's just other kid shows.
Yeah.
But, I still kind of think of Power Rangers as a cartoon.
Yeah.
Like, my 3-year-old, if I tell Mikey go watch cartoons and he wants to pick something, sometimes he'll pick Power Rangers, and I'm like, sure, that's fine. Like, I think of that as a cartoon.
Yeah. So, basically, how do I explain this?
Well, where are we?
So
when does this start?
We're right after Green with Evil. This is like the first thing that Tommy does.
So you can't just hand this to somebody and say, now you're looking at Power Rangers. Like,
no.
It is expected that you're already a fan of this material and you know something going in.
You at least have watched all of Green with Evil.
Yeah.
That's really all you need to watch in order to read this.
Or at least so far. because as we'll go along, it's going to get more and more informed by the whole of Power Rangers, and it's going to become very clear that the intended audience for this is adults that grew up with the show and maybe kept watching it.
Yeah.
Right?
Because you said that, like, maybe, like, it gets to the point where if you've watched every season of Power Rangers, you would know what's happening, but if you don't, then you...
Especially when you get into the period right after Shattered Grid.
Yeah.
It really expects you've read everything.
Yeah.
The Beyond the Grid stuff.
Yeah.
Which I think the majority of fans of this material would say is the weakest stuff so far. I'm going to try not to get too ahead of us, by the way, as we move along, but I think some spoilers will be unavoidable. So if you're reading this material along with us, we may have a hard time not telling you about some things to come, like if you've never read this before. So I can't make any promises. I will like tell you that a spoiler is coming when I bring up a spoiler, but like I don't think I can talk about this material without talking about what Black Dragon is.
Yes.
For instance.
Yes.
I think we'd be kind of pigeonholing ourselves a little bit too much if we went, there's this thing, it's Black Dragon, it means something, don't worry, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I can't, unsee what I've seen, and I've read everything all the way up to almost current, so there's blind spots where I just maybe don't remember everything that's happened, but, like, by and large, I know what's coming, I know where we're going.
Yeah.
I can't tell you what was happening in Beyond the Grid. Like, when we get back to that, I'll see if I can make heads or tails of any of that.
I'll see if I can make heads or tails, because it's not like I remember any of it, but I, myself, have seen every season of Power Rangers up through RPM.
Senior Stick says we need a before Green with Evil, so many unanswered questions. And I'm not... Yeah, and I'm not sure if he's referring to with the comics or just like background information about the Dragon Coin and all of that with just the series in general. But if he's talking about just like being thrown in with Green with Evil, Kyle Higgins and the people at Boom Comics are thinking what you just said. Like, well, if you've watched first season or you've watched, the big thing anybody remembers from first season, Green with Evil, you'll be caught up enough to look at this. But it doesn't exactly read that way. It really feels like... and I don't mean to harp on this too much, but it really reads like it almost wants a reimagining of Green with Evil before you start reading this. It just doesn't feel like Green with Evil could have happened exactly the same way. Like, the beats are there, but the whole flavor of this book is a little different. Like, it wants to be more sophisticated. It wants to have more character dimension, and would you agree, it's really having its cake and eating it too on storytelling, where, like, it wants to be able to get away with the absurdity, and not just of, like, we got big monsters and things like that, but with, like, how the, with, what's the word I'm looking for? With how, just, like, the powers work, and, mythology, and all of that, where it wants to be almost as ambiguous as the show is. And that always kind of drove me crazy with this, where I want more specific rules.
Yeah.
For how things work in this. We're just not getting that because Power Rangers didn't really give us that.
Yeah.
And I think that gets a little bit better as we go along.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I'm sorry, go ahead and give us a synopsis. We're at Green with Evil.
Okay, so we're after...
Or just after it,
Just after it, Tommy is in his first battle or whatever, and he keeps having, what are they called? Hallucinations.
Yeah.
Of Rita just randomly talking to him and telling him, like, oh, you need to, like, you're nothing without me, and you need to become evil again, and you can't be a good guy, or whatever. And so we get in this battle, and, like, Tommy doesn't do what Jayson tells him to do, and then they hold the monster back, and like he's in a Zord, and they're like hit him, and then like his Zord doesn't respond to him.
Yeah, it locks up.
And it won't let him attack, and then like the monster attacks them, and that is the bridge scene, right? I don't like the bridge fall down.
Yeah. Yeah, and basically the idea is because Tommy is second-guessing himself and he's being held back by personal insecurity, his Zord is uncomfortable with him and not responding to him.
Yeah.
And we'll also find out that that's the same reason that the hallucinations are happening with Rita, which is another somewhat ambiguous thing, but we'll get to all of that.
Yeah.
So with what you just mentioned, we've got all the character friction that you always imagined in the show that you didn't get.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, everyone's arguing and everything, and it's crazy. But then what happens? Oh yeah, he's like in his bed.
Scorpina shows up
or something. And then he's, like, wondering something, and then Scorpina shows up, and then she's like, I'm gonna kill your mother. And then and then he's like, oh, no, you don't. And then he teleports them to some random field in the woods. And then his communicator breaks. And, whoa. And then they fight in the woods, and then like all the Power Rangers come and they fight Scorpina in the woods.
So yeah, let's back off for just a second. What is Rita trying to accomplish here? Let's just get into character motivations.
I don't know. What is happening with this whole Rita arc? That's something I'm just gonna bring up right now. I feel like I can't follow what's going on.
Yeah.
So far, like, some parts don't really make sense.
It feels, and this is such a weird complaint, it feels plotted too much like a Power Rangers episode.
Yeah.
For a thing that clearly wants to be smarter than that, and overall really is.
Yeah.
So, like, it's one part pretty character-driven, and not in the way that Boom will be, with Perot. And, by the way, I should mention, I had a viewer who suggested that we start with the Boom comics. And was like, why would you start with this stuff? Because it happens later, and it's not as good of an introduction as Go-Go. And did I say Boom? As Go-Go Power Rangers. And so, if you don't know, we got to where we had 2 monthly books. One was Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, one was Go-Go. And Go-Go starts sort of like this begins right after Agreeing with Evil. That begins right after the pilot. Almost immediately after... what is the name of the pilot?
Day
of the Dumpster. Thank you. And to the point where we have to go to the moon and rescue the astronauts, which is fantastic. But we'll get to that when we get there. Anyway, so I agree with him that it's actually that's actually a better starting place. It's a better jumping on point. Because I do think I could hand that to somebody that has never really watched Power Rangers, and they might get invested in those characters. It's a much better. It establishes these characters in a much more engaging and entertaining way, and it's not all about Tommy. And a lot of people have the complaint that this is the Tommy show. I saw that in an Amazon review of these the other day, where like, oh, it's the Tommy show with the other Rangers, yay! But I didn't want to review it that way because we want to do, of course, some critical talk about this, and part of what I wanted to discuss is if the way this was released works very well, because it's, I think, a mistake on the part of Boom that it's kind of, a year or two before the books come out that's actually the way this should have been introduced to new readers. Mm-hmm. And so, like, this is the way most people are going to read this. Like, if you come to me and you say, hey, where should I start with the Power Ranger comics? I would say Go-Go. Mm-hmm. But most people wouldn't think to do that, and that looks like a side book. And it also gets kind of confusing and awkward because that's going to be encroached upon by Shattered Grid, just like this is. And so you're going to get to a place where, and again, I'm getting ahead of myself, but with all the Ranger Slayer stuff that happens in that book, it starts to feel like it's, again, almost another sequel that takes place in the past. You know, kind of like this will end up reading like a little bit, except when we get to the Draken stuff, it's not somebody from, spoiler alert, it's somebody from a future, but not our future, and I always thought it would be way better served by a story with a villain that it comes from a possible future as opposed to an alternate reality and in the future. But whatever, it's really convoluted, right? And that becomes a problem with starting with Go-Go, because it encroaches on that also. So what I mean is, it doesn't read linearly very well, because I don't know if the Rangers here think they've met Ranger Slayer. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I think it's a better introduction, but I don't think we could actually review it that way, chronologically.
Yeah.
Like, we're reading the Go-Go, and then we go to this. And
that
then
wouldn't work.
I don't think it would work.
It wouldn't.
And it's been a little while. I might change my mind when we get there and start reviewing that.
Yeah.
But that's my recollection anyway.
Like, I'll get to another point. Like, the first few issues of this series have the same structure as the TV show. Like, if it was more serialized, like, then it actually is. Then the show is.
In what way? Do you just mean in, like, Rita's hard-to-follow plot, or... And I don't think it's as hard to follow as you're saying, but I'm saying that after reading it a few times. Because
I'm not saying that it's hard to follow the plot. It's Power Rangers.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want it to be
And
Power
you think
Rangers.
it's two Power Rangers.
It's two Power Rangers.
Well, in Higgins' defense and in Boom's defense, what I've read is, and I don't know how true this is, but what I've read is that apparently Saban had a number of mandates that were over their heads, where they weren't allowed to do things they might have liked to have done, like fully reimagine this from the ground up. And when I say ground up, I would want the tone of it to be more or less what it is, and you'd want it to stay as colorful as it is, and look like that show, because I've said this 100,000 times, but I love the aesthetic of the original Power Rangers. You can do exactly what it looked like, and just make it smarter, have more character dimension, and make the mythology clearer and more concrete, right?
Yeah.
So what you'd want to see is basically what IDW Turtles did, which is a lot of stories that you've seen before just reworked, and I mean with that, you know, it will certainly go its own direction, and you never totally know what you're getting yourself into. It'd be nice if this did that too, but you could have the basic beats of Green with Evil, but just with real character arcs and some interpersonal conflict, and with a Rita plot that is a little more solid, and it doesn't seem so like random, just like, and then I'm gonna throw this at the Rangers, and then I'm gonna throw this at the Rangers.
Yeah.
So I'm with you. Like, it's kind of two Power Rangers, but like I said, what I've read is that Saban wouldn't let them go against continuity. So anything they did had to be between the raindrops. And that's a mistake, just on the face of it. And I think that they kind of did the best they could with it, and try not to contradict anything, but I wouldn't have modernized it if you had to do it that way. I would have kept it in the same period at the very least.
Yeah.
And it's made even more complicated by the fact that now those stipulations have been lifted, as far as I can tell. Now that Hasbro has bought Saban and they're in charge, some of the other stipulations that were there have been lifted, like, and don't ask me why they had this, but they weren't allowed to... I think they were just too overprotective of their property, honestly, where it was... Let me say this real quick. The stipulations, if what I read is accurate, sound a lot like what what pocketbooks had for Star Trek back in the 90s with their novels, where they have, like, if a new novelist wanted to submit a story for possible publication, there was this huge laundry list of stuff they weren't allowed to do, because they didn't want anybody to like mess with the canon too much, even though those things aren't really canonical, right?
Yeah.
This read like that to me, where it's like, well, you can tell a Power Ranger story, but you can't, play with. You can't mess with the toys, and like you got to put them back in the box when you're done.
Yeah.
And even Shattered Grid did that, which was really unfortunately a big mistake. Well, more recently, they've been allowed to do things they couldn't do before under Hasbro now, like give us background for Zordon and Zed. We just got finished with a whole arc that does that. And the reason, and like, it was so frustrating because Higgins clearly wanted to do stuff with Zordon, and his characterization of Zordon in how it kind of accidentally morally ambiguous he ends up being is fascinating, and dealing with his ideology and worldview, but you still don't know much about where it came from.
Yeah.
And we're not allowed to do really anything with Zed and where he came from, and Rita, there's a little bit more done with that, but it's still really spotty. And because of that, what you end up with are characters that are creators drastically, or like desperately, I should say, want to make more complex and make not just one-dimensional evil, that still have to kind of act one-dimensional evil. So you have that even with these issues with Rita, where sometimes she'll talk like she's a little bit more complex than she is in the series. And like her motivations might be a little bit more than just mustache twirly, I'm evil. But I never know if I can believe anything she's saying, and if it's not just a one-dimensional evil witch who's just better at manipulating people. So like when they have that bit where Goldar says to Billy in the Dark Dimension, well, we had to start making our monsters giant because Zordon made Zords. You don't have all of the story. Is there any truth to that? I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I've read all these comics and I don't know. You know?
Yeah.
So anyway.
Yeah, so basically.
So sorry, all that just to say that because I should probably just finish that thought real fast.
Yeah.
Just to say, their hands were tied behind their backs a bit.
Yeah. And
that's why this turned out the way it did.
Yeah.
And it's weirder now because they're allowed to get away with a lot more than they could back then. And if this was made from the ground up now, they probably could start over, and it probably would be a lot closer to what I want.
Yeah.
And so when you read all of this together, there's going to be a lot of, prepare yourselves for this, folks. In these videos, there's going to be a lot of me going back going, well, if only we didn't have the supposed embargoes from Saban, because why did it have to be like this? You know, there's a lot of choices that will seem arbitrary and pointless that really kind of strangle the narrative, and that's irritating. Mm-hmm. So notes.
So basically, well, we're not finished with the story.
Oh, you want to do more synopsis? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So basically, so like Tommy gets back to the command center, and then like they keep arguing and everything again, and then Tommy faints because he's just done with Rita.
Yeah.
He like doesn't want to hallucinate anymore. And
right.
So he faints, and then he has a dream about waking up, and then he actually wakes up.
Yep.
And then...
Well, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, but we should backtrack for a second and say, because I asked you, what is Rita after? Like, what are the motivations?
Yeah.
Rita wants control of the Dragon Zord and the green power coin back.
Yes. That is what she wants.
That's what she's trying to do.
Yes. I didn't really fully understand that, but yeah.
It's... I don't know, she just doesn't come out and talk much about what she's actually after. Again, she's a little bit too much like in the series where she's just doing things. So she has a crystal that runs on chaos energy.
What does that mean?
So it gets more energized when chaos happens.
So they have to... Okay.
So she puts it in a bull monster, and then the more the Megazord fights the bull monster, the more energy gets in the crystal. And,
okay.
And it's made even more energized by Tommy doing stupid stuff all by himself.
Oh, okay.
So him knocking over the bridge actually really helps her.
Oh.
And him going, like, one-on-one up against Scorpina really helps her. Anytime she sends a monster or Scorpina into battle, they've got that crystal so that it can keep building up energy. And then she has Finster make a replica of the Dragon Zord. So he has like a legacy Dragon Zord. He has a replica of the Dragon Zord.
You mean the Dragon Dagger?
Or the Dragon, not the Dragon Zord, of the Dragon Dagger.
A replica of the Zord?
Yeah, he's got a Lightning Collection version of the Dragon Dagger, right?
Yes.
And they're able to use the dark energy crystal in order to power it, and then now Scorpina is able to get control of the Dragon Zord.
Okay.
And
so
that's
basically they have
that's
to
how
go
they
to
did all
Jurassic
that.
Park
What?
to get chaos.
Sure, because that's chaos.
That's chaos. It's the chaos theory.
What makes it even more kind of convoluted, Jason, is that after that first arc, and she's still in the middle of this whole plan, all of a sudden a new bad guy shows up that doesn't seem to have been involved in all of this in the first place.
I don't even know why. Like, he just randomly shows up. Just all of a sudden. And,
like, it will kind of make more sense as we go along because, again, it's an interdimensional and time travel thing. But my biggest issue with the first few issues of this is just structure. Why on earth wouldn't you just introduce Black Dragon, at least to the audience, in the first couple issues? So that we have some sort of baseline of what's happening and what the story is going to be about. He comes out of nowhere.
Yeah. Yeah, he just randomly shows up and then is like, "Hi, Rita, I'm gonna be friends with you now."
Yeah, and you can't really tell how long he's been around.
Yeah.
Like, was he involved in the Chaos Crystal thing from the beginning? Like, I have a lot of questions like this. Or did he just now show up because now she has control of the Dragon Zord? And then he's going to go farther with that and get control of the Megazord and all of the Ranger Zords and everything else.
Yeah.
Because, of course, this is the place where then she gives Earth an ultimatum and tries to really take over, finally.
Mm-hmm. And, like, the problem with this series is it's not very memorable.
Yeah.
Like,
and don't worry, it will be. As we go along, it gets better and better. But, I mean, the fun of this... I mean, let's take a step back for a second.
Yeah.
The fun of this is action and flavor and the Rangers have real personalities.
Yeah.
Because, like, they all do feel like real people. There's maybe a bit more bickering than it needs.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you pretty much gave us the synopsis of the first 4 issues.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, then Black Dragon shows up. And then what happens with all of that?
And then, like, everyone loses their powers, and then, like...
Well, what's the first thing that happens when he shows up?
I don't...
He destroys the command center.
He destroys the... I forgot, because I didn't even realize that happened. That it got destroyed.
I mean, it's pretty clear. And then you've got, like, Alpha is on the ground, and...
Yeah. But, yeah, like, the command center gets destroyed. And then, before the Rangers, like lose their powers and can't morph anymore.
Yeah.
Like way before that, just suddenly in issue 5.
So what we do is we blow up the command center, and then we have a flashback issue.
Yeah, which is actually my favorite issue of the series so far.
So far?
Yeah.
Where we go back and reveal that Rita went to Zack first to give the power coin, the green power coin,
Which would have been cool.
And he turns her down.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because if this was a reimagining, we could have done that.
Yeah, that would have been cool.
We could have had him do it first, and then she beats him or he beats her. And then now she's got to go to Tommy. That would have been cool. I'm convinced that the whole reason this happens is just because of the 10 seconds in one episode of Mighty Morphin where Zack has the dragon shield.
Yeah.
I'm convinced that's why Higgins thought of it.
Yeah. Why did they do that? Also, did you know...
Because they had footage from Sentai where that happens.
Because, did you know that technically... Billy and Trini are the only 2 characters in that show that haven't worn the shield.
Is that right?
Technically, because Jayson and Zack have both done it, and then Kimberly does it in the phone game.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, but I mean, that doesn't count. I thought you meant in the actual show.
No. Only 3 people do it in the show.
Because as we'll see at the end of this, then everybody ends up being a Green Ranger, but they don't all have the shield.
Only
Curiously, Jayson ends up with it, and I'm not totally sure why that is, but...
Yeah. Yeah, they use his power because
there's a lot of visual novelty in this.
Yeah.
Where it's fans will... And it works, by the way, on a lot of fans, where it's isn't it exciting you finally get to see this? And, I mean, don't get me wrong, it's fun. I just sometimes wish that there was more, concrete explanations for things.
Yeah.
But that's a thing this series loves doing, is making everybody the same color. We do that a lot. We do it in Power Rangers Pink.
Yep.
I want to say there's an issue where it happens with maybe red or maybe yellow. I think it happens with yellow somewhere.
Yeah, it happens with yellow.
Yeah.
And then I think everyone turns blue at some point.
Does that happen to him?
Maybe. I'm not exactly sure. But I do know about the yellow thing.
Like I said, we're jumping around a lot, but one thing that's kind of hilarious about this to me is, like I said, people complain that it's the Tommy show.
Yes.
And you get to a place toward the end of the second arc where Tommy's the only one with his powers, and you're like, oh, of course he is, right?
Yeah. Tom is my least favorite character, just so you know, in this series.
We'll talk about that because I gotta know why. But what I was gonna say is, I get this glimmer of hope for a second that he's gonna be put a little bit more in the background, and the Rangers are gonna have to the rest of the Rangers put a little bit more front and center. When it's not like other characters don't get anything to do, and like I said, the characterization is good, but I think that is a fair complaint. It's the Tommy show.
Yeah.
But when you get to the end of this, I find myself going, okay, cool. He has to use his powers and relinquish them so that the rest of the Rangers can take over and
he doesn't
teamwork.
Get to be a Ranger.
And he won't get to be a Ranger because he's been a loner the whole time, and he doesn't really understand or embrace teamwork. And that's what Power Rangers is all about, of course.
Oh, that's
And there's this kind of big question as to whether or not he's even worthy of being a Ranger, and what where his heart truly is at, right? And then you get to the end of this, and it's still the Green Ranger show because they are all Green Rangers.
Yeah, but it's not the Tommy show.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess that's nice, but
nice.
I'm just gonna scroll all the way to the end and show you guys that. That Black Dragon fight is awesome, by the way.
Actually, okay, green is not the problem, even though green's my least favorite color. But sorry to people who love green.
This is the kind of superficial conversation you end up with when you start talking about Power Rangers.
But green is also, why is he wearing a black dragon arm? Anyway.
Why is he wearing the black dragon arm there? I don't remember. a plot point about that.
Like, I know that he has it, but I don't know why he's wearing it.
Why is he wearing it? Didn't they just figure out that it's even metal?
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, I'm not sure why he's wearing that.
But, like, the problem is just Tommy, like, as a character.
AMC Comics, in my experience reading him there, it was a lot like what you're saying about this. You can tell he loves the material, and it feels almost right, but just not exactly totally consistent. He's talking about Kyle Higgins when he did Batman Beyond 2.0, and yeah, I totally agree with that. I had the same feeling about what I read with that, too.
Yeah. Also, why is black, like, kind of green, but, like, mostly black?
I think it's just the
lighting.
The lighting or whatever, yeah. But anyway, so what else happens that we need to talk about real quick before we get to your notes? Nothing. Well, we know that Black Dragon
Alpha comes back.
Yeah.
For a minute.
We know that Black Dragon is somehow tied to Tommy, and there's a lot of clues about what Black Dragon is. And again, spoilers, we will find out later that Black Dragon is a Zord, and that he is being controlled by Draken.
Yes.
And all the clues are kind of there that that's what's happening.
Yeah.
He keeps calling Rita Empress, which is what evil Green Ranger was calling her. We get a flashback.
The only person who called her that.
Almost. There's one other person that does it like one time. I think Goldar does it one other time.
Goldar does it.
But I do think that's supposed to be maybe kind of a tell.
Yeah. I mean, he could just be Goldar 2.0. You never know.
But yeah, I think real quick, let me get back to that structure point I made a minute ago. I think the big problem with this is just not, especially if you haven't read any more of this, just at the beginning, is not really getting a sense, since you don't know where it's going. You're like, okay, is this sort of turning into a reimagining where like everything up to Green with Evil counts, and then now we're going totally our own way and it's branching off? Or is it somehow between the raindrops kind of thing, or are we like, you know, kind of paving over the timeline or something? We start having that kind of Enterprise question. Yeah. It seems so weird and counterintuitive that just after Green with Evil, where the Green Ranger breaks into the command center and like knocks Zordon out of, you know, interdimensional orbit, as it were, and you know, shuts down Alpha and all of that, that then like in the continuity, like a couple weeks later, we would blow up the command center. Seems like such a weird thing to do, right? And then you'll find out that, well, it's actually a character from another dimension and the future who comes in and seems to be maybe paving over time. So this isn't how it was supposed to go. Yeah. Seems to be what it is. And that's better, but then again, eventually this will just become the status quo and like what happens in the history, while everything around it counts. And it just kind of breaks my brain.
Yeah. But yeah, like, I feel like there is actual, like, I like that there's actually some character development. Like, there's actually stuff happening. Not really development, but there's actually stuff happening with the characters and their
I would say development, absolutely. Development and progression, absolutely.
Yeah. Isn't development and progression the same word?
No, not really.
Aren't they synonyms? Synonyms?
I think they sort of can be, but the way I've always just narratively described development versus progression is when you develop a character, you're letting a reader understand who they are in the first place. Like you're creating a foundation, you're developing the character. Progressing a character is evolving a character. Allowing them to change and grow.
Okay, well, yeah, this is more progression than development. Well, I mean, it's both.
Again, it's both, yeah. Because we are getting some things with these characters that we either didn't have in the show in the first place that go along well with the original archetype that was there, or that we're really just building on. quite a bit,
Yeah.
So we take Billy, who was kind of, anxious and unsure of himself because he was the nerdy guy who's not great at fighting, and we take that quite a bit further. And we say he doesn't feel like he deserves to be a Power Ranger because all he's good at is science and math. And then you have that scene where Trini has to convince him that that's not only important, but everybody on the team actually looks up to him and is jealous of his ability to do that, because it's not just about the fighting.
Yeah. I mean, okay, I'm just gonna say this. Billy is one of my least favorite characters.
Interesting.
In the series.
I think it will turn you around as it goes along.
Okay, because right now, I mean, he's not getting a lot of screen time, which is, well, screen time.
Yeah,
it's a comic.
panel time. Yeah,
panel time. it's panel time, but which I think is part of the reason why I don't really like him, is because he just doesn't really show up that much.
Yeah.
But also, he complains way too much, and I didn't really like him in the show either.
Oh, you felt like he was kind of whiny?
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, who is your favorite character right now? Because you're mostly just pointing out. It just seems like every character we bring up, you're like, I don't like that guy.
My favorite character is Trini.
Okay.
And because she progresses a lot.
Okay.
I feel like she can do anything.
Well, that's not progression. That's just so.
She's changed.
So I think what you're okay. So you're liking her because of the way she's different from the show, is what you're saying. Okay. So what's funny is I think what you're latching onto is what a lot of people would see as the character with the least dimension so far, because, and I can see why you're liking her more than some of the other Rangers, but Trini has
she's likable.
Yeah, but you're saying that because she has the least angst of anybody in the book right now. She doesn't have as much of that teen angst thing. She doesn't have the personal insecurities that they do yet. Although it's not that she is perfect or unconflicted, because we will get to a place toward the end of what we read today where she's already feeling bad and kind of blaming herself for what's going on with Black Dragon. Because she says, maybe like it was my idea to go to the pocket dimension and look at what's happening back home. Like, maybe I shouldn't have done that. Maybe we should have stayed there and stood our ground.
Yeah.
And then Billy or whoever it is she's talking to is like, or Tommy, I forget who it is, but she's talking to somebody, and they're like, well, but if we'd stayed, we would have gotten killed. Like, we weren't ready to take this force on.
Yeah.
But like, everybody's a teenager. Everybody's in over their head. She puts on a really good game face and kind of plays den mother or like counselor to the group.
Yeah. And and also she doesn't get into arguments, which also helps. Like, I like Zach. He's not one of my least favorite characters. He's not one of my favorite characters.
I think it's funny, though, that you said that your big complaint about this was it's two Power Rangers. But one of the big things that makes that show what it is that everybody kind of has that TNG Roddenberry thing, where everybody gets along, people hardly ever argue or complain with each other. They just kind of walk around, talk about nothing, and laugh at everything everybody says, even though nothing is funny. And
yeah,
it seems like you're complaining that this isn't doing that.
Well, okay, I like that I get that they're arguing.
So you're fine with conflict.
I'm fine with conflict. I just don't like people who complain too much and
no, of course.
Let's just say Jayson. He's not one of my least favorite characters. He's not one of my favorite characters. He's not one of my favorite characters because I don't really latch onto him that much, and he's not one of my least favorite characters because he doesn't complain too much, and he's like a likable character.
How do you feel about the friction that he has with Tommy? Like, he's not trusting Tommy because he's not working with the team right.
Uh-huh. I think it's cool because those actors didn't like each other that much. So, I think it's, like, very, I don't know, like, personality, like.
It's set up in Green with Evil almost as if they're gonna have to fight for dominance, and then, of course, that never happens.
Yeah.
You know, I always liked that they have that sparring match at the beginning or not sparring, but they're in a karate tournament, and it's the first time they meet, and it ends in a draw. Like, one's not going to be able to beat the other, and it really feels like it's setting up some kind of what will turn into a conflict between them, and that show's not allowed to do that.
Yeah.
And so this gives us all of that.
Yeah.
I like the way Jason's characterized in this quite a bit.
Yeah.
I like that he is.
Oh, thank you. No.
I like that he's, of course, a good leader.
Yeah.
And he puts teamwork above all else. Sometimes maybe even a bit to a fault. But like everybody else, he's a little in over his head. He's still a teenager, and he's made even more interesting when we get to Go-Go. And I'm kind of hesitating to go too much to what Ryan Perot did with it, because I would argue that this stuff reads way better after you've read that stuff, because it's consistent enough with it. But when we know some of the background and motivations for some of these characters that I think should have been here from the beginning, it should have been more about that at the start. It's too plotty. It's not character-driven enough, but the characterization is there. It just, everybody feels too in the background. Mm-hmm. But if we knew, for instance, that Jayson used to be a bully, and the reason he's the way he is now is because he made a vow to stop being that way and to fight against bullying, all of this reads better. Like, if only you knew that.
Yeah. Yeah, so I don't like... So Tommy's one of my least favorite characters because it's centered around him too much, and he was already not a very likable character. I mean, Jason David Frank is fine. Like, he's not... I'm not DJ, where I just hate Jason David Frank. Like, with a burning passion. But, like, he's fine, but he's not my favorite actor. Like, I mean...
So what's your problem with the character here, though? Besides just, I'm sick of looking at his face.
Well, actually, I don't like the way he looks in this series. I don't know, but he just has too many problems.
He just has too many problems.
Yeah, and I feel like the show is. I mean, the series is just centered around him too much, and it's a teamwork thing, not a Tommy thing, I feel like.
But if you're going to tell this story, I get why you've got that, because he's not a team player. That's supposed to be the point. I think part of the problem might be that we're not allowed to get in his head, really, even though we spend so much time with him when he's by himself.
Yeah.
And I feel like we're a little bit too walled off from our protagonists. I don't need journal entries necessarily, like we've got with Go-Go, but just something that, like, there are so many conversations. Like, this is kind of surprisingly talky for how action-driven it also is. But, like, we surprisingly don't get into characters' heads enough. So, like, some people I feel like I've got a better handle on than others, or at least I find more sympathetic than others. I get everybody's motivations. I get why they're all doing what they're doing, but some characters are less sympathetic than they should be just because I'm not with them enough.
Yeah.
And Tommy definitely has that. So, yeah, I appreciate that it's more than just he's the new kid and he has a mullet, and so he's the angsty loner kid. Like, okay, but where does any of that come from? Like, why is he supposed to sort of be edgy? And of course, Tommy actually never felt edgy, but they just played him like, we never had teenagers with attitude. We just said we did. And Tommy never really had that attitude, but we pretended like he did. In this, he does, and it feels like it comes more from a place. But what do we really know about him? When he was a kid, he moved around a lot, and he spent some time in London and various places in the States. We don't know, and he lives with his mother all by themselves. We know nothing about his dad. We don't know what happened to him. We don't know why they traveled the world. You assume maybe military something, but I don't think we're told that.
Paris too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did I say London? It was Paris or London one. I forget.
It was both.
Oh, okay. But anyway.
Yeah.
We don't really know enough, and it doesn't seem like there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
You know, like we're waiting to find that out. So anyway, we're about an hour in. What else should we talk about with this? I feel like we've been kind of shockingly negative about this. This is a fun read. Don't get me wrong.
It is, yeah.
And I think one of the reasons it doesn't hold up great compared to a lot of the rest of this material, which is why it's kind of frustrating to talk about it. When it came out, it was delightful to have this material handled in such a more sophisticated way.
Yeah.
And there were a lot of things you always wanted to see that you finally got to see. We finally addressed stuff, and we can argue about whether it's addressed well, but we finally addressed stuff like, why doesn't Rita just attack them at their houses? She knows that they, what their secret identities are. Why doesn't she just do that? Well, there's kind of an explanation for that, right?
What is the explanation? She goes to Tommy's house, and at least I didn't get that they explained it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a great. I guess what I mean is we just addressed that she could, but she doesn't. It's not even talked about in the show. Because like she has Scorpina go down, and I guess with this particular case, it's just they've got to build up the energy for that crystal. Mm-hmm. You know, I guess, but yeah.
Yeah. Since we're on this page right now.
Yeah.
No, but it's right here.
Oh,
Goldar.
Sorry, I didn't understand what you were doing.
Goldar is one of my favorite characters. And he doesn't show up much, but he's great because he has this great like sense of attitude and stuff.
Yeah.
And he's very like, I don't know how to explain it, but I like Goldar.
I mean, he's characterized exactly like he is in the show, except he's just allowed to have a little bit more like angst to him, I guess. Yeah, you like that more with a monster character than you do
yes,
with
because
the
it's
teenagers.
Hilarious.
Yeah, because I mean, he's really loyal to his empress, just like he is in the show. Mm-hmm. But here, he is. I don't know. There's a little bit more pathos to him.
Yeah.
But yeah, but it also just like the Rangers have parents, and they actually have to come up with like ways around. And Go-Go deals with this more, and is a lot smarter about it. But you get the sense that like they really have full plates. And it's really hard for them to do their homework and be Power Rangers and all of that, you know. And like you actually see Tommy's mom, and she looks like she's maybe having a hard time, you know, running a house by herself and doesn't know what to do with her son.
She looks younger than Tommy, but
that's hilarious.
Oh gosh, my tablet just stopped working. Okay. Oh wow, it's at 100%. Your outlet is amazing.
Oh yeah, well thank you.
So I like that it's kinda like mature Power Rangers. Mm-hmm. Like people say like, oh my god and stuff.
Sure.
And, I feel like that's good to do with comics. Like,
but it doesn't go too far. It's not trying to be like gratuitously crazy violent.
No.
Can you hand this to children?
Yeah. But I like that it's not trying to be
like what's the youngest age you would give this to?
A 6-year-old, because I read this when I was 6.
So, like, if a 6-year-old can read already...
Yeah.
Do you think it's fun if you're just here for the Power Ranger action? Or are you going to find yourself, like, really rushing through dialogue if you're a little kid?
Probably. You would probably be rushing through dialogue.
That's kind of what I'm thinking.
Yeah. But I like that it's trying to be, like, a more mature thing while also keeping the structure. Like, I don't like that they're keeping the structure of it, but I do like that it has that kind of...
But they're keeping the spirit of it.
Yeah, they're keeping the spirit.
Which is more important, yeah.
Yeah, they're keeping the spirit, but I like that they're, like they're setting it in the real... in the future, which when I talked about the Batman, like I really like when things do that, because it's, I don't know, it's cool.
Yeah.
But like I like that this does it, and it does it in a good way. And yeah.
You know, back to something I said earlier, I think the explanation for why Rita doesn't just attack them all in their homes is that she doesn't have any way to stop them all from coming together in a Megazord and beating her wherever she is.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know. I guess I felt like we were doing more with it just because it even happens. Like, the 2017 movie does this, too, where, like, everybody, when you're a kid watching Power Rangers, you're thinking, why doesn't she just attack them at their houses? And, like, now we're doing that. But here it seems like it's just, well, she's not going to, like, straight up, she's not gonna, like, murder Tommy's mother, but she's gonna, try to make him think that maybe she will, so that, she's got more power over him. So yeah, it's not a good explanation. It's just, it's nice that it's addressed at all, is all I'm saying.
Yeah. A couple more things.
Yeah.
And then we can, like, I don't know, like, wrap things up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I couldn't think of the word. So, actually, AMC said, like, that he really likes the art.
Yeah.
And I was gonna say, like,
I was about to ask you about that.
I really like the covers.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the covers are, some of the alternate covers are a little too, like, sketchy. Like, a little too, looking like an 11-year-old drew it.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, it's weird.
Variants or whatever, though. Because you're just going to various different kinds of artists and having, you know, a big, diverse, you know, swath of different kinds of covers.
Yeah.
Boom handles their variants very much the same way Dynamite does, where for trying to sell to hardcore collectors, and I think this has a lot to do with how these companies stay afloat, is they'll make a bazillion variant covers for the few people that buy comics that they know have to get everything that came out no matter what it is, and no matter how much the variants cost. So when you do like a 1 in 10 variant, and it's going to cost somewhere between like $10 and $50, you've got people that will actually spend that much because they have to be able to say that they have everything and be completionists. And Power Rangers #1, I mean, it probably had 40 covers. Maybe it didn't have that many. I remember it having a crazy amount, and then you get into, in every issue of this, it doesn't have just 1 or 2 variants. They've all got 4, 5, 6. And then when you get into Shattered Grid, 25, that got insane. And then, like, every time a new arc starts or you have a big event, you've always got to have the helmet covers.
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
And then
there are people that collect just those, the helmet covers.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I actually have that one, yeah. And I don't collect the helmet covers hardcore, because some of them get really pricey, and I don't allow myself to spend more than $5 or $10.
We've got all of them
these,
here on this box.
And so 10 is even kind of crazy for me, but if it's the right kind of thing, where it's just, you know, a thing that I want to have in my collection, not just because of comics, but because of other Power Ranger stuff I collect. Like, if there was a really great Zed variant that was like a $10 variant, I just loved and had to have, I might do that. But that's what it would take. Let's see which covers I have for these 8, shall we? Let's take a look here, and then we can talk about interiors a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay, so...
Do you have... Okay, because... So, there are also the Zord variant covers, and also my favorite variant covers. Do you have any of the action figure variant covers?
I don't have those. Those tend to be really pricey.
Those are my favorite, and they're amazing.
I've never been the biggest fan of those,
They
but
look
they're
so
kind of fun.
cool.
Yep, and Power Rangers does a ton of those. Power Rangers is not the only series that does those. But they do quite a bit of that.
There's also the ones with Go-Go that look like different movie posters. Those ones are super cool. Like there's the one with Buffy.
So I have Zero twice, but for whatever reason, my other copy of Zero is not in here. I don't know where it is. But we have it signed on the back by Ron Wasserman from when we went to Power Morphicon, the composer of Mighty Morphin. And then I have mostly just the regular covers for these. Either the regular cover or the comic shop exclusives, which would cost the same, but you'd get in your pull box because you had a pull list, which I don't do anymore, but I did going all the way up to the beginning of Mighty Morphin. When we went to 2 books, and it became Mighty Morphin and Power Rangers.
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Do you have to read Mighty Morphin Power Rangers and Go-Go Power Rangers to read Mighty Morphin and Power Rangers?
I would say yes. I mean, it's definitely an extension of all. It's the same book.
Is Mighty Morphin Power Rangers and Power Rangers is Go-Go, or is it Switch?
Oh, so you really don't know how this went
at all.
Okay, so...
I don't know what's going on.
Jumping way ahead here, folks.
Yeah.
But after issue 54, 55, we start over, numbering-wise. And instead of going back to the same title and just saying, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers #1, we split the book up and we did it kind of like... This won't mean anything to you, but we did this like Bendis's X-Men back in the Marvel Now days, where he had 2 X-Men books, and they both kind of talked to each other. You could read one and not the other, but eventually they would kind of converge, and they'd tell a big story, and it was kind of important to read them both. Perot does it earlier, so it's the guy that wrote Go-Go, and he's in charge of both books now. So we don't have Go-Go anymore, but we have... that writer doing all of Power Rangers now, or at least doing both of the main books, I should say, because you've got Power Rangers Universe and some other things that are doing kind of one and done stories or arcs about stories all over, or history all over the canon of Power Rangers. So we're really opening this lore up now. We're doing stuff about space, and we're doing stuff. There's a big 5-issue thing about Phantom Ranger now. We're gonna review all of this, by the way.
Oh gosh.
And that's my plan anyway. I want to go all the way up. I want to do it all.
Pink and
Yeah, I want to go all the way. I want to do it.
Justice League and
if you're game, I want to do it all. Yeah.
Then they do Transformers.
Recently, and Power Rangers versus Godzilla is happening right now. Cullen Bunn is writing that, and it's drawn by Freddie Williams, I think, the guy who. He's laughing because that sounds like his brother's name. Our last name is Williamson, and Freddie Williams. But he did the Batman Power Ranger or Batman Ninja Turtles comics, so you know what his art style looks like, and he's drawing them exactly the same way.
Really?
I'm not the biggest fan of that art, but
I love
what
that art.
Oh, good, because that's what it looks like. It's like 2 issues in now, I think. But
did you ever read? Was it Batman Ninja Turtles 2 that started getting Bane and stuff? Because I know that I read that stuff before you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he shows up in that first one, but I think they do more with him. Because isn't he an elephant man or something?
Yeah.
When he mutates?
Yeah.
I forget. But anyway, like I said, if you're game, I want to do all of it. Because some of it I haven't read yet, and some of it's been a while. But anyway, to answer your question about what Mighty Morphin and Power Rangers is, so when we get to that place, we've split off the team, and the status quo is Season 2, where you have the Forever Rangers with, or what we're calling the Forever Rangers now, with Rocky and Tanya, or Aisha, pardon me, and I always do that because Zio, and Adam.
Yeah.
Right?
I accidentally said in my head Rocky and Balboa.
That's hilarious. But anyway, instead of so what we find out, according to these comics now, is that the whole peace conference thing was an excuse.
Yes.
Because the original 3 Rangers that left the show over not getting paid enough actually went off and became Omega Rangers.
Yeah.
So one book, which is Mighty Morphin, I think, is their book. And Power Rangers is the regular status quo Power Rangers. So the Omegas go off and do their own thing.
So Mighty Morphin Power Rangers is just... So Power Rangers is just Mighty Morphin Power Rangers more.
Yes.
Like, part 2.
Yeah. But there's this... And they kind of go to war with each other. Because the Omegas kind of go against Zordon's code. And he doesn't even consider them Power Rangers. And there's this kind of question about, like where their morality is. And there's this big kind of like virtue ethics versus ends ethics argument happening between those books that I really like. That's quite good.
What's happening with Kimberly?
What do you mean?
Like, is this before Cat?
Yeah, because this is season 2. This would be during season 2.
During season 2.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yep. We jump in just as White Light has happened. And Tommy is the White Ranger, but we expand on all of that, and we say that Tommy is so powerful now that his power coin has affected him to the point where he doesn't need to sleep because he has too much energy, and it's awesome. And he starts worrying.
What?
Yeah, and he starts worrying that like he is, becoming kind of a different animal, like less than human or something, because now he doesn't need to sleep, and it's really cool.
What?
You will like Tommy more as we go along, I think.
Oh, what?
Yeah, it's great. No, we're gonna have a lot of really fun stuff to talk about, and that's why I feel like we started this on a little bit too much of a downer, because this series is gonna get really fun.
Yeah.
And it's gonna get great. It's gonna have rough patches, and it's gonna have stuff that we're gonna absolutely hate. We're gonna have a love-hate relationship with this. I'll tell you that right now. But it will be worth it. It'll be fun to do. Okay, so my issue 6, I have 2 of, and one of them is this really cool variant.
Ooh.
Yeah.
It doesn't even say the logo on it.
I know. I love variants like this. That's the Bandora's Palace variant. And then I have this cover.
Is
that the regular cover?
That is the regular cover.
I'm not sure, honestly.
Also, Dad, I have one more favorite character.
Of the Rangers, or just a different character?
Different character. Can you guess?
Oh, and real quick, I was also going to say, in those new books, you also get into that period where you have a White Ranger and a Green Ranger simultaneously.
What? Oh, yes.
Yes. And you may know who he is.
I do know who he is.
Okay, we won't give that away. But anyway, go ahead.
So, can you guess who my other favorite character is?
Of the Rangers?
No,
or just anything?
Of anything.
It's not Zordon, is it?
No, it's not Zordon.
Zordon we haven't really gotten real deep into in these first 8 issues. And again, they're not allowed to do background or anything.
Yeah.
But, why exactly he has his philosophy of always reacting, but we're already getting a little bit of a sense of he might not always be right about it. And that's cool. But I just wanted to mention this really quick, since I brought him up, that he has this line where he keeps saying, Rita's history with the dragon coin is vast. He says it like twice, and I don't know what that means. It's like, yeah, she's got a lot of history with the dragon coin. I just think it's such a weird way to put her history. Every time somebody's like, how is she doing this, Zordon? With like how does she get control of the Dragon Zord? He'll just go, Rita's history with the dragon coin is vast, which is code for, I don't know. Okay, your favorite character is, I don't know.
That's not a character.
Is it Bulk?
No.
Do you like that Bulk and Skull have
their own comic series?
A giant? They don't have, well, yes, and we're not reviewing that, but well, not really a comic series, but they have the backup issues. But we're
not going to review those.
No,
those are great.
Oh, did you read them?
Yeah, I read them.
Oh, I skipped those.
Oh, you skipped them?
I thought we'd skip those, but
oh, I read them.
Oh, you can talk about them here in a second.
Oh, I have no idea what the heck to say about them.
But do you like that they have a YouTube following of 400,000 fans? That they went from being bullies to being YouTube famous?
I didn't realize that they had 400,000.
Yeah.
But
there's a line about it where Bulk is like, don't you have anything, Tommy, to say to our 400,000 followers? Anyway, who's your favorite character?
Vitruvian Man.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So there's some fun monsters.
Yes. There's two monsters.
I just mean in this book, in general, they'll have some fun monsters.
Yeah.
We've got two new ones here. We've got the Bullizard, who's a bull who has armor, and then
his name should have been Bulldozer.
Yeah, it's not a great name.
Sorry,
I'm trying to get to him. There's the Vitruvian Man. Yeah,
the Vitruvian Man.
This one is really fun because he's just the Vitruvian Man come to life, and he speaks in nothing but Da Vinci quotes that Squat and Babu got off the internet. That's fantastic.
It's fantastic.
Do you just like all the stuff that he says?
Yes.
He's got this great line. Let's see if I put the panel here. Oh, yeah, here it is. He's got this great line when he loses, where he says, "I thought I was learning to live, but I was only learning to die." So good.
And what's funny was, like, he had to actually go to the internet to find the Da Vinci quotes.
Yeah, that's pretty great. I have a complaint about the monsters in this book in general, which is they sometimes don't, or very often, they don't look enough like Power Ranger monsters. They look like kaiju monsters.
Yeah. They look straight out of, like, I don't know, like
Pacific Rim, or that's the first thing that comes to my mind.
Yeah.
What were you gonna say?
I have no idea. I was gonna say like Mask Rider or like Godzilla or something, but that I don't know.
See, I don't even think they're enough like that kind of thing.
No.
'Cause Mask Rider is just another tokusatsu. Like that'd be fine if it looked like those. But like I don't even love the look for Black Dragon, like as a Power Ranger monster or Zord or something.
Oh yeah.
Like I like him, but he just doesn't really fit the aesthetic.
My favorite Ranger ever is Dragon Armor Training. Now, I don't even get
there are
that.
people that are really into that for some reason. I don't know why. But yeah, I mean, here pretty soon we're going to get into some things that have become extremely iconic for this franchise. The comics have been insanely influential on this fandom on the whole. And I think there's a lot of people that never read this stuff, but just get into the aesthetic of it in other media. I would go as far as to say that I don't know that you would have this big resurgence of extra media Power Ranger stuff if it wasn't for this book and this new obsession with the word grid.
Oh god.
That is because of this book, with Shattered Grid.
Yeah.
But like Draken became this huge merchandising cash cow that I think a lot of people are buying that who didn't even read this.
Yeah.
But Ranger Slayer is that way. It does look well, and Power Rangers is a toy commercial, and this really continues that tradition where there's so much stuff that's really toyetic in this book that they've been making toys of. Yeah. But the new monsters, not so much. And you notice, even the ones that the comic fans keep talking about, like Sheeple and stuff, we still haven't made figures of.
Mm-hmm. So you know how they keep doing all these crossovers? They need to do a crossover with Buffy.
Oh, that'd be crazy.
It's Buffy the Vampire Slayer versus Ranger Slayer.
Oh,
It would be
yeah.
amazing.
That's great. No, I would like to see that. That's cool. I didn't think of that. That's great.
It's Buffy the Ranger Slayer.
Okay, we're already somehow almost an hour and a half in, so we should probably go ahead and close up shop.
Bye.
Anything else you wanted to make sure and bring up?
Yeah.
Did you have any more notes?
The Bulk and Skull adventure things.
Oh, yeah, and also, just talk about the art for a second. The interiors.
The interiors.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not exactly... Like, it's... Okay, I love Dan Mora.
Yeah.
Like, he's great. I like how he does
This is not Dan Mora.
Suits. It's not.
You know that, by the way, right? Yeah. Well, I thought you were going to say I love Dan Mora, so this stuff I can't get as into. No, this is Prasetya. This is Hedrick Prasetya. And I like Mora on this material, quite a bit more. Although going back to this, I enjoyed it way more than I remembered.
I don't like how he does faces and people. Like, I like how he does ranger suits and monsters.
Is it too manga?
It's too
inspired for you? Here's the thing. 6 years ago when this came out, that's how I felt about it. Where I was like, I don't know if I want too much manga in my Power Rangers comics.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I just...
I like manga, but it's not Power Rangers. Like,
I don't know if it's because I've read more manga and watched more anime since then, or if I've just become accustomed to this aesthetic, but I had to keep reminding myself that I had that before while I was reading it this time, where I was like, didn't I have like a manga issue with this? I'm not having it now. Maybe some of it too is, I do appreciate that this doesn't happen more than it does. We're looking for excuses to wipe helmets away so that we can see facial expressions. It doesn't happen that much, and you might have expected it.
It feels like someone's ripping off my skin with a knife.
I think maybe part of the reason I'm coming around on it is because I had the thought, okay, but Power Rangers is based on Japanese material in the first place. And there's a lot of Sentai manga. And I've read now the first Kamen Rider manga.
And I've read part of the first Sentai manga. So.
Yeah, because Eric gave you that in hardcover.
Yeah, which I need to finish, but...
And so maybe that's partly why I'm kind of more okay with it now. I kind of like both aesthetics. Somewhat more manga inspired. But I'm with you, I don't like the faces as well as with Mora, but I do think that the Ranger action is a lot more on par with what Mora does than I gave it credit for before. I think that's a lot of what got this as popular as it was in the first place, is just, this stuff does look good. It is exciting, it is bombastic, it is dynamic, it's what you want from Power Rangers, and I'm gonna make a statement I don't know if I ever really have reviewing comics. I like the coloring better than the art. Isn't that a weird thing to say?
Yeah.
But I really like the way it's colored.
Me too. It looks like watercolor colored pencils. There's
Okay. I guess I can kind of see that.
Also, while we're on this thing...
Are you going to do the nitpick?
Yeah,
that I complained about with this? Yeah, go ahead.
Because I also complained about it
sure.
5 years ago. There's something wrong here.
Can you guess what it is? We'll give you a moment to guess what it is.
The Dragon Zord is all the way over there. It has to be right next to the Mastodon. And it has to be before the Mastodon, not after it. What is wrong with you? I don't know why they did that.
Once Tommy comes into the picture, he always goes first.
Yes.
It's Dragon Zord, and because it's always got to end with Tyrannosaurus.
It has to end with Tyrannosaurus.
And yes. I think I know why that is in the series. I think it's so that they don't have to re-edit the sequence. Because you can just put Tommy up front and have him go Dragon Zord, and then you still can cut to the same thing that you cut to at the end of the sequence with all of the morphing, where he says Tyrannosaurus, and then it's that shot with the light that goes across his face.
Yeah.
Because you can have that if you don't. He has to go last, or you can't have that.
Yes.
Yeah. So you read the Bulk and Skull stuff, and that goes on weirdly long. Like, it's not done yet.
No.
They'll have the Misadventures of Bulk and Skull?
Yeah.
So they do that, and then they do one with Squat and Babu.
Yes.
Do you know about that?
Yes.
And then they do one with... Do you know what the third one is?
No.
It's weird.
Is it Orbis and Clank?
No, because they don't do any Zeo stuff, but it's Blue Centurion and Ninjor. That happened.
I need to see that in that art style.
One more quick complaint about the art, real quick. Sorry, before you get to that is, and I don't have any images of that because I didn't think we were
complaint
talking
about
it.
the art is the art for Misadventures of Bulk and Skull are not great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they were trying to make that look like a newspaper strip.
Well, they were trying to make it like kiddish.
I don't like muscular Power Rangers.
You don't?
No, I've always had that pet peeve with when we translate them to art, is that they've always got to be, and this is very 90s, but they've always, and I'm not sure why we went to that with this, but they've always got to be super, super muscular.
So you hate that,
and they're just not in the show.
Sentai, video game where all of them are reskins of each other, and
yes.
even the Pink Ranger is muscular.
Yep. Well, and of course that's dumb just because they don't get their own unique shapes and the girls look like men.
Yeah. And I think they did that with like the the Genesis version too.
But yeah, I don't think they need to look super buff.
No.
But anyway, so talk about the Bulk and Skull thing for a minute.
Yeah, so yeah, like Bulk and Skull, like they're trying to be Rangers, so they set up this like putty, and then they go to court. Like, what? They go to court because they set up a putty, and then they were like, look, we're heroes and we're gonna fight this putty that we definitely did not like take hostage and like drive in, like put in the back of our truck and drive over
That's
to the
hilarious.
Park. Yeah. And then he's like, watch, we're like the new Power Rangers or whatever. And then they go to court, and then they have to like do good for the city or whatever.
Yeah.
By like painting, and then
they got to do public service.
Yeah. And they get Lieutenant Stone.
Their community service. Oh, they put Lieutenant Stone in there already?
Yeah, already.
Oh, weird.
They put him in there, and like, yeah.
So when does this take place? I guess it doesn't matter. It's just silly, jokey comics. Well, anyway. Well, folks, thanks a lot for watching. Did you have anything else you wanted to mention about that?
No.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but it looked like you were done already.
Yeah, I'm done.
But it was fun.
Oh, I don't know why the heck I read it. I don't know if it was fun. I read it, though.
Guys, we're going to come back again next week if everything goes according to plan, and we're going to tackle the next 2 trades worth. So it'll be 9 through 12, and then 13 through 16.
Won't it be, aren't we already in Go-Go, though?
I gotta double check and see where Go-Go starts. And actually, if we're doing these I'll just have to pull up a list. If we're doing these entirely in the order they were released, we may even actually have Power Rangers Pink in there somewhere, because that came out relatively early. I think that was maybe in the first year.
It was.
So we may end up doing one of these trades and then a trade of something else.
Yeah. How the heck are you gonna title that? Like,
I'll figure it out. I mean, I might even change the title of this and just number them and just make it, Boom Power Rangers Part 1 and just number them. Mm-hmm. I don't know yet. This was easy to just put it in a title, but you're right, they won't be as we move along.
Yeah.
Jason, I'm excited to cover this with you. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
We didn't mean to be downers about this because we kind of got all the negative stuff out right away. This didn't hold up great. Compared to some of the rest of it, like I said, and I was kind of surprised by it.
I couldn't think of much negative things to put in my notes, so it's kind of weird that...
Because then we got into it, and you were like, oh, and I don't like this.
Yeah. Because, like, I couldn't really think of anything negative, and then I was thinking of a few things, and I was
But like I said, so much of the complaints just stem from the way the creators were kind of forced into a corner.
Mm-hmm. Also, I have one more thing. I like that they brought back Scorpina, because I like Scorpina.
Yeah, and somebody really enjoyed drawing her pretty clearly.
Yeah. She's great.
She's got that great full-page spread
they had
in Tommy's room, and...
Yeah.
Yeah, no, she's awesome.
They had to have done that thing with...
How excited were you when they put her in the Battle for the Grid fighting game?
Oh, yeah.
Wait, what were you going to say?
It's sad that they didn't use the giant version of her, though.
She's got cover. I had that thought, too, yeah. Her crazy monster form?
Yeah.
Where she's like an actual scorpion monster?
Yeah, that would have been fun. Well, because then, like, Tommy would have done something really stupid, like... Probably.
That's true.
Yeah.
Or he'd go after her by himself. Mm-hmm. That'd be a mistake.
Wait, so the Black Dragon Sword can grow giant and grow small?
All by its lonesome.
Like, what? It doesn't make any sense because it's a Zord.
I don't understand it either.
I don't understand that.
That's not ever explained, I don't think.
Yeah.
But there's this whole thing about how the metal alloy it's made out of is like nothing on Earth, and so I think it's supposed to just be something. It's really advanced technology.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
well, folks, thanks a lot for watching once again, and we'll see you again next week. I hope you'll tune in again. I was Captain Logan.
And I was Jayson.
And we were father
And son.
Later, folks.